So, this is a kind of a sermon illustration, I guess, that I got earlier today. And so as we go through this, we're going to kind of bounce off of each other and kind of go from there. So actually don't need the Kniff, it has things because Lego is cool.
Oh.
So, this was a Lego set that I bought earlier today. And it is a 3-in-1 set. And there's something very specific about that is going to be a part of this. So, let's see here. And part of this whole process is from beginning to end. So this is a 3-in-1. It can be a camera, a TV, or a video camera from old video camera. So we get to first of all choose which one of these we want. Now, I personally have already made one of these into camera shape. So, do you have a particular one that you'd like to see me create? I was kind of thinking maybe video camera since I already have the Polaroid, but the TV's kind of cute. So,
I'll go with that one.
that one? Alright. So, the thing about Legos is their directions are fantastic. Okay? And so the first thing we're going to do is dump all of our little packings out here. And hopefully the pieces don't just go flying everywhere. I have had that happen on occasion.
I'm just getting some scriptures pulled up while you're opening them.
While I throw a piece, it's fine.
Wait.
Here, it ran off. I flung a piece over there on the board. No, I don't know.
See it?
Oop. Yeah, hooked you, see how
My library wasn't even my wallet chain this time.
Alright, so you stay there. Right. So I'm going to attempt to build and talk at the same time. But the idea behind this came earlier as I was driving and I heard a song. And it was the song Tell Your Heart to Beat Again by Danny Gokey. That is actually the song that I walked down the aisle to during the wedding to my ex-husband. It was really important to me because as I was driving and sitting there hearing that song, it was the first time that I've actually heard that song and not cried. Because listening to it, I was sitting there thinking back on my wedding day, thinking how excited I was and full of hope. And I really sat there to think about it. And the idea of the song is, you're broken, you're shattered, all these things have happened, but God says, tell your heart to beat again. Today is the beginning of a new story. And it was. It was the beginning of a new story for me. But it wasn't the end of the story. And I kept sitting there thinking, okay, God, was that a mistake? Was it in your will? Did you tell me to do it? I don't know. And God gave me this image of literally just this. Each one of these pages has a complete picture on it. So if you think about it, if I can find the piece that I need. There we are. I need it right now. Looking at this looks nothing like what's on the box. But realistically, this is complete. This is a perfect representation of this Lego set on page 1. Step 1 is done, but it looks nothing like the finished product. Could you say that this is a complete Lego set? Absolutely. Could you say that this is perfect and complete? Yes, because it is. But it doesn't look like the picture on the box. It's not what I ordered. It's not perfect yet. But it is. Every step of our lives it's set up. I don't want to say it's perfect because it's not. But each step of our life, we're complete in that moment. We're just not done yet. So I'm going to be doing this you've got a couple scriptures to read while I sit here and try and figure out what the next step is here. Because sometimes it takes more than one to figure it out.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read the passage of scripture that we are going to be talking about, and I'm going to read it in the CSB to start with. So, main text we're looking at is going to be Matthew chapter 5. We'll start in verse 43. And Jesus said, "You have heard that it was said, 'Love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. For he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward will you have? Don't even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers and sisters, what are you doing out of the ordinary? Don't even the Gentiles do the same? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect."
You want to explain to them what that means?
I absolutely do, because you see, I grew up hearing this verse used in hellfire and brimstone sermons, turn or burn, if you're not perfect, you're burning in hell, that sort of deal. But whenever we're going back and looking at this, number one, once you put it in context, Jesus is talking about loving your neighbors and praying for people who are your enemies.
Which is not easy to do, is it?
Not easy to do, but has absolutely nothing to do with the idea of perfection aside from sin.
Okay.
Nothing to do with that whatsoever. So you can cherry pick Matthew 5:48. Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. But all you have to do is add the verse before it for context. And if you greet only your brothers and sisters, what are you doing out of the ordinary? Don't even the Gentiles do the same? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. So, number one, if you put that verse into context, it's not talking about sin. It's not talking about the idea we get of archery, and we can go into that more later, but it's not talking about sin. He's talking about how we're supposed to treat other people.
And not just Christians treating.
Exactly. And now, to back that up, we go into the original language. For that word perfect, we go into the Greek. And I am by no means a Greek scholar. I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation of this. But it looks like it is T-E-L'-I-O-S, teleos.
Teleos. Yep.
Teleos. So that is the Greek word that Jesus uses for perfect. Now, if we go to Strong's definitions, for Strong's, now it says it is from a root word, and we'll get to the root word in a minute. But the literal first word, complete, in various applications of labor, growth, mental and moral character, completeness, of full age. So this word, even before we go into the root word, the Greek word we're looking at here is already talking about something being complete in applications of labor or growth or character.
So this is a complete Lego set. On step 12.
That is the completed step 12. Outline of biblical usage. 1, brought to its end, finished, wanting nothing necessary to completeness. Then let's go down and see where else this is used. Whenever it looks like Matthew 19:21, if you want to be perfect, Jesus said to him, talking to the rich young ruler, go sell your belongings and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me. Obviously, Jesus wasn't telling the rich young ruler, hey, if you want to be perfect like me, you need to go sell everything, because that's not the answer. Just going and selling all of his possessions would not have made him perfect as in flawless, because whenever we try to use this word that goes back to teleos, when we try to use that to mean flawless, that is a complete misrepresentation of what Jesus was saying, especially when you consider, if you go back to the root word, which is telos, that literally means end, termination, the limit at which a thing ceases to be, the end. Strong's definition: the point aimed at as a limit, the conclusion of an act or state. So again, we get that idea of an end, but in a finished work sense.
So this isn't finished.
Exactly. And I would also, I may have already said this, but I would point out that just like we can now look at that word teleos to say that, Jesus was specifically saying mature, complete, brought to an end like a finished project. Does that mean that a project is flawless? No. If you have ever built a shelf out of wood with your own hands, used tools, nails, and screws, when you get done with that shelf, no matter how much care you take, there are going to be a few little blemishes, a few little things that you hope someone doesn't notice. And if you say I'm wrong, you've either
built anything.
You've either never built anything, or you've built 1,000 more shelves than I have. Because I don't know anyone who can, again, just the example of a shelf, who can build one out of wood with tools themselves, not something you buy in a box in a store. I'm talking about go to Lowe's, get the wood, cut it to the right pieces, measure it, what have you. Yes, I know that was in the wrong order. But in order to, we're going to have to edit this out. What was I talking about?
Make it complete, make it finished. You gotta go get the stuff from Lowe's.
Oh, so that is the kind of crafting that we're talking about. This isn't an example of, I went down to the store and bought a shelf in a box, threw a few things together, and here it is. This is like a project, building something, creating something out of raw materials from scratch, yes. So those are the specific words. And if you are making something like that, chances are, if it's made by hand, it's not going to be flawless. It may be complete, it may be, quote, perfect and finished, but it's not going to be flawless. And for most people that prefer handmade items, that's one of the reasons that they prefer them, because they are unique. Mm-hmm. And if we are going to use the analogy that we are being shaped by the hands of God, then why on earth would we assume that we are supposed to be flawless?
But I'm supposed to be like Jesus. Right? So
you're supposed to try, but that is a race that will never be won until the day we see him face to face. Because here's the deal. If Jesus had meant flawless, there are words for that. Mm-hmm. There are Greek words that he would have used.
Okay.
But he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were never designed to be flawless. It is a meaningless pursuit. I talked about archery earlier. Mm-hmm. So, imagine, if you will, you have, let's say, 20 people in an archery competition.
Okay.
All that has to happen for someone to win that archery competition is for someone to hit the mark.
Correct.
For someone to hit the appropriate mark to fulfill what needs to be done.
Correct.
Once that happens, once someone hits that mark, once that tournament is won, no matter how long you stand at your target firing arrow after arrow after arrow, no matter how close you get to the standard, you're still not going to make it because it's already been done. So what we're seeing here is that a lot of times Christians fall into this pit of, instead of focusing their mental attention on developing their relationship with Jesus and having honest conversations with him, they put their focus on just simply trying not to sin. And that is a trap from the enemy. Because just like if you're standing at that target firing arrow after arrow, and Jesus walks up and taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, I already hit the target. The target's not the point. Come follow me. That's the point. The point is not the target. The point is not to be flawless, to be perfect, because that is a pursuit that is never going to happen. And the more the enemy can get us focused on trying to be perfect, I didn't say do whatever you want. But the more the enemy can make us focus on trying to be perfect and make us kick ourselves when we fail instead of getting back up, the more he wins.
Right.
And see, I love, I've recently discovered that I love the First Nations version of the Bible. I love that translation.
So this would be considered perfect, even though it's not completely flawless, because I can't put stickers on crap for nothing, apparently. But anywho, that's that. Anyway, continue.
Okay. So in the First Nations version, I am going to start on verse 43 because I love the way this sounds, especially at the end when you get to verse 48. The way that they translated it, it kind of streamlines it into a kind of a more linear thought with everything else.
Okay.
So it starts here. You have been told to love only your own people and to despise others as your enemy. But I tell you, treat your enemies with love and respect, and send up good prayers for the ones who make trouble for you and bring you pain. This will show that you are mature children of your Father from above, who sends his blessing of rain on the ones who do right and the ones who do wrong. If you love and show respect only to those who do the same, how does that bring honor to you? Even tribal tax collectors do these things. If you welcome only friends, how are you different from others? Even outsiders from other nations do these things. By loving and blessing all people, you will be walking in the footsteps of your Father from the spirit world above, who is perfect in all his ways.
Ooh. Okay, yeah, I like that.
So instead of it giving this idea that we're used to having it translated as be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect, the way this is phrased kind of flips that on its head. By loving and blessing all people, you will be walking in the footsteps of your Father from the spirit world above, who is perfect in all his ways. So basically, this, instead of leaving it open to where you can cherry pick that verse to say, oh, well, if you're not perfect. Yes. If you put it into this context, it literally lays out that the reason we are doing these things is because it is the way of our Father in heaven that is complete and that is perfect. So that is the way that we need to follow. I love that because it's not a matter of
being spotless and perfect and trying to be something that as humans we can never be. It's about trying to be more like our dad, which that's attainable, because here's the thing, again, I'm not done with this step yet, but this is perfect so far. I'm still a work in progress. I'm still working towards it. It's not flawless. It's not complete yet. But for what it is complete. It is done. This is a video recorder, but it doesn't look like it yet. But that's okay.
I read a book that was written by one of the founding members of Delta Force. And he was talking about how at first the pistol instructor that they had chose a 1911 because of the 45 ACP caliber, because they were firm believers in CNS shutdown, central nervous system shutdown.
Correct.
And it was the belief among military shooters at the time, and it is still that belief among some, that the force, the specific slow-moving force of a 45 ACP or a larger similar round is less of a piercing force and more of a punishing, pushing force. And that if double taps could be achieved in rapid enough succession to center mass, that it would then cause central nervous system shutdown on the target and therefore make it safer and more efficient to stop the threat. So in this book, he explains all that. But they didn't start out with handing them a 45, lining them up at a target and saying, okay, pull the trigger twice. And when they didn't hit the target, kick them out. They didn't do that.
Okay.
They didn't start with, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk up and we're going to pull the trigger twice and we're going to see where it goes. No, didn't do that. They didn't even start out shooting. They started out learning how to take the weapon apart and clean it and put it back together and fix any potential malfunctions.
Okay, but why does that matter?
Why does that matter? Because no matter how good you are at shooting that weapon, if it breaks down or it jams and you don't know how to fix it, you don't know how to clean it, then it becomes useless. It becomes a very inefficient hammer.
Big paperweight.
Yep. So then, once they learned that, they went and started firing double taps, right? No. One. They learned one, and they had the target, and they practiced with a 45 over and over and over and over again until every time consistently they could hit the target. But then they had them do something that none of them expected or wanted to do. They made them quit using the sights on their pistols.
Yeah.
It is a principle called instinctive aim, and it was the belief, and again it still is by some, that if you learn where the bullet is going to go, if you commit that to muscle memory, then you no longer need the sights. They become just an extra convenience if you can use them. So they taught them that. Then they started building up the speeds that they did these perfect single shots at until the day that they started having them do double taps. 2 shots in quick succession to center mass of the target to cause central nervous system shutdown. To make it safer for them, easier to stop the threat. But again, these are some of the most well-trained soldiers in the world. But they didn't start out firing double taps. They didn't start out doing the things that make them known as one of the greatest special operations unit in the world today. They started out learning to manage, to maintain. Then it was one shot. Then quicker. Then two. They had to learn instinctive aim. There's all these things went into it.
So the more instinctive it becomes, the easier it is to become better at other things as well, without forgetting where you first came from.
Yes, absolutely. So even then, once they learned to fire double taps within about, I believe this is about the size, every single time they could reliably do it, they still weren't done.
But they were building on an imperfect foundation. So how could they get better?
That's the deal. Their foundation is good, but now what they got better at was hitting those shots without using their sights. Both bullets hitting that small target while moving. While not just standing in front of a piece of paper, while moving through a house. And they ended up finding out that the reason they had to learn to be so accurate was the way they were teaching them to clear houses involved them shooting while some of their teammates were moving throughout the room. So they had to memorize shooting lanes, and there were times that bullets would be flying within inches of their teammates.
But isn't that deadly?
Absolutely, if you haven't been trained to hit a double tap on a target the size of an apple for months.
So what you're saying is something doesn't have to look perfect in the beginning, but it can become perfect later.
Yes, because think about it, at no point in time were these men expected to do something they hadn't been trained to do. Expecting someone to do something they haven't been trained to do will lead to failure. They started them out on the appropriate things and got further. Now, whenever they were first learning to disassemble and reassemble that pistol, once they got done learning, the day before they started firing those shots, I very much doubt there are many people in the world that could have gone up against them in how quickly and efficiently they could disassemble, clean, and reassemble that pistol. Does it mean that they were experts with that pistol? No, but it means that they had become experts in the disassembly, maintenance, and reassembly of that particular pistol to the point that it was like professional competency gunsmith level. So
what you're saying is, I still have pieces left, but it looks like the picture now. So is it perfect? Is it done?
Did you complete all the steps?
Completed all the steps, exactly the way it was told to me to.
Does it look like it's supposed to look like?
It does. But I have pieces left over. And, I mean, it doesn't look like everything on the box. So is it done? Is it perfect? Is it complete?
I would say so.
But it doesn't look like a TV.
That's right, because you didn't build the TV. You built the camera.
Doesn't look like a Polaroid.
That's right. Because you didn't build the Polaroid, you built the video camera.
And that's the same thing that we fall into, and the same trap that we fall into, is sometimes there's going to be pieces left over. And realistically, I could take this apart and start on this one, and this one would be perfect. And there's going to be pieces left over. And this one's going to be perfect, and there's going to be pieces left over. Because God wasn't building me into a Polaroid. He was building me into a video camera. And I've got all these pieces left that I want to try and fit somewhere. I want to do something with them. But it's not going to look like the box because I don't have all the pieces here.
Mm-hmm.
Those are for something else. Those are for someone else. Those are for a different stage in my life and my creation. But I'm perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And that stage is done. And it built on another imperfect stage, and another imperfect stage, and another imperfect stage, until finally it looks like the picture on the box.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all janky looking, and there's these extra pieces, and I mean there's room that I could fit them in there, but it's not really going to do me any good if I fit them in there because it's not structurally necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to. And it's not perfect. But it's perfect for my purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's exactly what we need to remember as Christians. That not everything has to be perfect that we think of as being perfect. It's perfect in God's eyes. It's perfect for His choice and His creation. Because He had the option to make you someone else, and He didn't. He had the option to make something else out of your life, and He didn't. And so you may think you hear God in one moment and you do the thing and you're so excited. And then God calls you to do something else that looks very countercultural. I mean, I didn't need to start it upside down. That wasn't part of this, but it was part of designing it. It was part of creating it from a mastermind way better than me. Because I could sit here with all these and I could never make this without the directions. But God made you without directions. He designed you, He created you, He wrote the manual on you. And He's making your life look like what it's supposed to look like. But imagine if these Legos didn't want to go together and they were screaming at me every time I tried to put one together. And they were yelling at me and they weren't formed just right. And maybe the plastic on the little round bits wasn't just right.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna fit together. And if I need a 4-piece here and I only have this little 1 piece, it's not going to look right.
Mm-hmm.
But it all works together in the end.
Mm-hmm. See, it's the same way with each team member, because the reason why each of them had to learn instinctive aim while they planned that from the beginning for them was because once they were in a room and they were taking a room and they were all moving together, sometimes they weren't going to be able to see the sights on their guns. They were going to have to go on skill and on faith. On their own skill and on faith that the other members of their team weren't going to shoot them.
And we're going to do what they were taught to do.
Yes. So in a situation where at the beginning you talk about instinctive aim and, if you've got sights on the gun, why are you going to take the time? Because they had to learn to shoot by feel, so that when it came down to it, when the situation was dire, when it was an emergency, they didn't have to see it. They just did it on faith.
And sometimes it takes doing it on faith when you don't see where it's coming from and you don't see what's going on, to really get it right. And sometimes you're going to fail. Sometimes it's going to suck. Sometimes you can wing it. And you can go off the picture and you don't have to have the directions to make it right. But it's not necessary for what I was building. I can go off and do side quests all day long, but it doesn't mean that's going to be exactly what I'm working on. Doesn't mean it's a part of it. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing either, though. I can go off and help somebody's life and do these things that God didn't call me to do, and it can look all right. And maybe it'll go all right. Maybe there's nothing negative attached to it. But if I did this in the middle of building this wasn't going to get done nearly as fast.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes life doesn't look like the box. Sometimes the steps you go through aren't going to look like what's on the box. But it doesn't mean that they're not part of the plan. because God sees the bigger picture. We just maybe only see step 1 or 2 at a time. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts on this. So, final thought. Well, some people that know me know that Theodore Roosevelt is my favorite president.
Mm-hmm.
He managed to keep something hidden from almost everyone in the country and in his life for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So he loved to spar. He was fascinated with boxing and martial arts, and he had invited a heavyweight champion to the White House, and he proceeded to spar with him and took a hit so hard that it disconnected his retina in one of his eyes and rendered him blind in that eye for the rest of his life. Now, on the outside, did he still look like Theodore Roosevelt?
Sure.
Probably talked the same, walked the same reasonably once he got used to it, but he was walking around half blind, and no one knew. If I was going to say something in the end, it would be to look around you. And as much as I admire Theodore Roosevelt, he could have had help. There's the potentiality that something more could have been done for his eyes had he taken it more seriously, or people could have helped him more if the knowledge of the injury had been more widespread. Did he get along great? Absolutely. He was Theodore Roosevelt. He's a legend. But I've always wondered if he hadn't been so dedicated to the appearance of toughness and masculine perfection, could he have used that injury for something else?
Probably.
I don't know what. I don't have anything planned with it, but I've always wondered if instead of putting the effort into hiding that injury, he had put that same effort into something else, maybe raising awareness for people with eye problems, raising awareness for boxers' injuries. I don't know exactly what, but I have always wondered if he had not walked around hiding that wound, what could he have done with the energy he spent hiding that wound if he had been open about it?
It takes a lot of energy to hide things that aren't perfect. And honestly, it's silly. There's no reason to. It's quite simply just a thing. It doesn't matter. So why do we spend so much time trying to be this version of perfect that we think we're supposed to be when God never told us we had to be that thing? But we think we need to, because we think God needs help. We tend to think that a lot, that God needs our help. And he doesn't. He never did to begin with. And see, I'm adding all these pieces because I think I know what I can do with them. Doesn't add anything to it. Doesn't make it any more or less functional. Kind of gets in the way, but it's something I wanted to do. And you know what? Doesn't get in the way of its purpose. Doesn't break anything. It doesn't fix anything. It's just a thing. And that's okay. We don't have to, but we tend to think that people are less than when they add something that we don't like. That's just dumb. So yeah, just because your step 15 doesn't look like somebody's step 31 doesn't mean you're not in the process, and doesn't mean you're not complete. Doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Doesn't mean that you heard God wrong. Just means you're not on the same step as them. Doesn't mean you're any less perfect. So yeah, thoughts for the day.